Hello, we are back, and as promised, let's move forward. One of the last lectures of the European Science Festival will be held by Kenneth Monjero, the president of Fun and Education Global Network and director of Children's Science Center Kenya. He's also known as Dr. Fun, so let's hear how fun is his lecture. Dr. Monjero, the internet is all yours.
Thank you so much. Am I loud and clear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Very good. I'm so happy to be here in European Science Festival. I'm really happy, and it's amazing to really join our entire team and entire science advocacy members. I'm really happy. So as you've been informed, I'm Kenneth Monjero, and always refers us to Dr. Fun. And I'm really happy to preside over this event, as to look at the European Science Festival is not just basing and focusing on Europe, but it's also concerned about partnership across the world. I'm really glad to be here. Allow me to share my screen and just engage in terms of what we do. I love science, and in everything, what I would say is it's all science around us. In everything we do, everything, whether you do accounts, whether you are in different disciplines, everything rotates about science, and that's why I love science so much. So allow me approach this from the point of Fun and Education Global Network, which I'm passionately the president of the organization. And this is what we are looking at. Everyone having fun with education. Because we know education has been taken, especially science in Africa, has been taken affiliated to people being serious. People being, smart, and, of course that is good, but it's good to look at science is really in day-to-day, in our day-to-day exposure in terms of science, technology, and innovation. So, and why are we targeting children? We're targeting children because this is the formative stage of every child. Imagine, or what if every child was born and nurtured in science, in science way, looking at science, looking at greatness of science, connecting the nature with science, and appreciating science as a discipline that is not only for scientists, but everyone doing science. We are looking at how can we engage in formal education to really empower, learners, to bring together learners, to engage in hands-on, other than a formal education system that looks at skills, looks at, not skills really, looks at other information in terms of theory and all that, which has been done over ages to learn and to know principles of science and all that. So how else can we inculcate this discipline in learners? So Kenya as a country is really looking into how can we engage our learners through provoking their curiosity and engaging them across fun, so that we make it interactive and fun. And of course, how can we empower learners to do things, to solve issues, to connect and make up solutions, come up with design solutions and products and pathways to actually have a better world. That's the thing to say. And engaging, of course, engaging in terms of engaging with the science itself and engaging with each other. Learners like in Kenya have been working in isolation, and this isolation is, in their own school as far as they're following the curriculum, and that is no longer the way that we need to go. We need to look at cross-curriculum. We need to look at other individuals to learn together, to share, learn from each other, learn with each other, and as we develop. So we are really looking at how can we bring the globe together to learn together, because we are having now a global village. I mean, everywhere I can fly within no time. I mean, Europe and such. Our learners crisscross. countries to go learn from any other universities and such. And that's what we are really, really looking at. And the other thing is, passion. How can we inculcate these hearts of passion, in science, and how can we bring these professionals that are like science is wow, and to awaken that potential in learners to really see that, yes, we are passionate about science, and not just science as an education discipline, but we're looking at science with the ability to make the world a better place. All the constraints we face, be it climate change, global warming, be it pollution, be it what, how can we engage science to rectify all this and even to make it the world a better place than ever? And of course, we're looking at innovation. Now, in Kenya, there has been complaints about enrollment in science, disciplines, and looking at increasing, girl-child uptake of science careers. But the thing is, if we nurture children to appreciate, to love science at the start, then innovation will be automatic. And that's what is the vision actually for our Fun and Education Global Network. We're also looking at professionalism in terms of high-level professionals. I know professors are there for university students and master's students and PhD students, and the industry or the engineers are there busy doing and building industry and all that. But how can we bring these highly professional people to empower learners, to sit down with learners, even if it's one session, and tell them about engineering, talk to them about being a pilot. And we want them to come in their uniform so that these learners take photos, take selfies, and appreciate the various disciplines, other than just being told by their teacher, you will become an engineer, you'll become a doctor. Can we connect them to these doctors as now, not when they go to hospital for treatment, but now having fun together? And of course, quality of content. We need learners to have that exposure. If it's microscopy, we don't need just to be talking about microscopes, or we don't just to give some magnifying glasses while others are using microscopes. We need a mobile lab, and that's what we ride on as Fun and Education Global Network, having a fully set mobile lab reaching to every learner, every point of this country, and even to marginalized areas, that learner to have a real equitable experience as those schools that are in urban, in the cities, and schools that have resources. So that's what we are really looking at. Yes, and if we do this, what is the outcome? All these learners are amazed. They're, wow, this is science. And they really learn about science and the skills that they need to deploy in science to bring up innovation, to change the world, to study the systems and all this, because they are now connected to the industry. They are connected to professionals. They are connected to equipments that are needed. They can really see what doctors see. And that's what it's all about. If a doctor can see this and tells me, then I'll believe, because I've seen what the doctor sees. And they will have now, they will grow knowing and appreciating the diverse disciplines. Now, let's talk about why do we need informal education, especially in developing countries and much more even in developed countries. We are talking about science museums, we are talking about science parks, we are talking about, interactive centers. Yes, it's because in most cases, when you talk about STEM or science, technology, engineering, and math, and now art has been added and innovation, STEAMy, everyone, like in my country, I mean, it's boring. What's that? It's untrendy. It's difficult. It's a jargon thing. So I rather talk about, languages and talk about, easy things that are easy to understand. But when you come about science, so how can we change that? By making STEM attractive in such a way that every learner can want and say, we are not saying we want everyone to do science, but we just want everyone to appreciate science. You might be doing your discipline and whatever, you are in a different career. But the thing is, if we all appreciate science, then we'll marshal all resources together to curb, issues that we are facing and all that, from various angles, from various pathways. And of course, need for participatory and open-minded learning approach. So Kenya has really been embracing this, where now it's no longer the teacher, the old setup of the class where the teacher stands at the front and the learners are seated. But we really need where learners can also stand in front and teachers sit down and we listen to each other. We can have group discussions and such. So participatory, listening to each other. And it should be beyond exams. Yes, exams are good. Our learners go to school, they're given A's or distinctions or such. And the grading system is all based on, did you pass this exam? Did you understand this principle? But now we are going beyond that to look at skills. And even some of the examinations are basing on skills, practicals. Can you do this? Can you fix this? Can you tell us about this? And such kind of things. Can you solve this? Can you wire up this? So that kind of a thing. And then, of course, we are looking at innovative approaches to science. So what do I mean by that? Most schools don't have labs. So when we are talking about equity, when we are talking about every learner engaged in education, most learners don't have this, especially in our country and more so in developing country. Kenya has really come up to speed because there are quite a number of programs and the government is also really bringing up to speed the school development programs. But then not all schools, it's a very, very small percentage. Actually, I would say less than 30% have a laboratory. So how can we get in with that? That's not gapping education, but it is reducing the gap between education and industry. The gap between education and industry needs to be reduced because the industry always has been complaining we are not getting the right personnel, human resources. We have to train them again before they really engage into doing, So how can we reduce that gap? By developing learners, giving to the industry the right, resources, the right, skilled personnel who come from universities right into the industry, because the industry has no resources to train their staff again, even if there are refresher courses. But then we are trying to reduce that cost in terms of train to employ or employ, train, and then, so that's kind of the thing that I'm looking at. And of course, studies have been done. I know every one of you knows about learning efficiency. Initially, it was reading, know how to read and write, all, full stop. But it's no longer that, because that one you'll just have achieved 20%. So because you're just using reading, which is 10%, you're using, hearing, maybe 20%. But we need to go to develop education that has direct experience or smart play. Let's, attract these learners through puzzles and all that, and they can really solve, issues and whatever through such kind of learning. And that is the best way. And that is where even science centers, science museums, and such kind of platforms operate. And unfortunately, in Kenya, we only have 2 science centers, or what we call science museums. And we, of course, we have the main museum. But the thing is, interactive centers are very, very limited. So where I work at, Science Center Kenya is the first science center in the country, and the government has really embraced this. And then now also Fun and Education Global Network, which is a mobile program, which is appreciated, and many other programs coming up to really engage, on robotics, on coding, on all those programs that are plunged in schools. So I would say, this is the time where we need to engage our learners in all educational institutions at the level of direct experience or smart play. And when we engage them at that level, then they are able to go to the other level, that they are able to engage learners in terms of how can we now teach each other. That is the best learning. When there is no teacher, when you are gone, when the lecturers are left the classes, what the discussions are, everything, when they are maybe having coffee, having dinner and such, they are really, really learning. And that's what we call applied education. So they can actually apply what they have learned in class. So I would really, really strongly advocate if every organization would run everything they run for learners to have the bit of fun. And that's what we do. We ensure that our program with Fun and Education Global Network, the first thing is fun, enjoyment, and amusement. And this one helps them in terms of, it attracts them, attracts the attention, raises the curiosity, and the only group that remains are actually the group that are now oriented to advance in science or in STEM or such. And not only to have fun, but we also need them to learn. So basically what we are looking at is how can we have our learners learn through these programs. And in that manner, then you realize that when you have an interactive, because actually the old system, I would just say is, whenever you stand before a class of learners, you'll always find that maybe 20% or thereabout are concentrating on what you're doing. But the rest are distracted and all that, because I mean, they're used to this trend of come to class, teach them, and go out, and next topic, next topic, next topic. So they only do it because at the end of it, they'll have to do an exam. But I did a study where I was looking at how many learners would love to be in school. And mark you, it was actually less than 20% of learners would love to be in school, 20%. And you can look at that percentage in terms of learners don't want to be in school. And if you ask them, why don't you want to be in school? You'll actually realize that they are only going through the system, or the system is going through them, but they are not really there to really, run with the system. And that's why I'm saying we really need to put this issue of enjoyment and amusement. And we've done that. We've evaluated our programs. On every program you run, I ask you, what is the fun bit of it? Now look at that photo. That is myself. I'm coming with a cloud. Yes, so what is the fun? Oh, blowing the cloud. Wow, look at this. Oh, I've never touched a cloud. I can now touch clouds. I can now touch clouds. Yes, that is really amusement. But then the thing is, what's really happening? What teacher, what did you do? So you see, they want to go to the next step. Yes, we are enjoying, we can run through the cloud, we can touch clouds and all that. But then, so what? So that's why we have to evaluate a program to see that they are learning something. It is not just having fun, but we can see that we are driving education. We're driving them to learn on what is happening. And when they go back to do it again, they now understand what it is. I will give you an example. Talk about climate change or global warming. How many learners in basic education and even in high schools that you can ask them, what is climate change, to understand the depth part of it? The very few. And yet, majority of them have taken up the action of planting trees, of looking at all these emissions, gases and all that, and reducing that. But yet they're doing that because they've just been called for action. But then my approach, or Fun and Education Global Network approach, is understand, then act. Because if you act without understanding, after all, you might easily drop even along the way and say, after all, why am I doing this? So the best way is understand, then take action. So, and this understanding means that you have to make the content suitable for this learner at a particular level to understand. And that's why I normally say, at whatever point, we should make children at lower level, Montessori level, understand climate change. At basic primary level, understand about climate change. At high school level, understand climate change. At university level, understand climate change. It depends on how you package it to that level. And that's very key. So we have to ensure that, yes, there is fun, but there is education, they are learning. So, and then we are also looking at how can we engage them to be mentored. So mentorship is a catalysis process. It is a process whereby you have understood, yes, but then you need to be taken to the other higher level so that from that level, you can keep walking step by step. Whenever you reach a particular point and you're stranded on the pathway, there's something that can still keep moving you upwards so that you are not only walking alone, but you're walking with the professionals. And remember, the mentorship I'm talking about is not that one of children saying, I would love to become like so-and-so. I would love to become like so-and-so. No, we are talking about mentorship where that child works with this mentor who is highly professionalized. Because this professional would have used this kind of approach, and the team that will be left to work with, they have already discovered who this child are in terms of what they would love to become. And then from there, now the mentor helps them become or actualize what they would love to become. So it becomes a process, apology for this. It becomes a process through which the mentor works with these children. I know we have limited resources, even human resources, but for nations to develop, there has to be that kind of a strategy to link up educational sector, kind of a tier mentorship, so that we have primary school mentored by high school, mentored by university, mentored by professionals, and not only professionals mentoring the university students, but also in a cycle, like kind of, so that you're mentoring and you're being mentored and all goes round. And that's what we're looking at in terms of meeting the targets that we are setting, that various governments are setting. It all starts with the right education. It all starts with the right educator. It all starts with the right the content that is suitable for these learners. And I would inject this here. Who should communicate science? It's a big question that everyone has been talking about as I talk about fun and education. So in science, we need to look at scientists are there. We are, wow, I have a PhD in virology. I have, I'm an engineer and this, yes. But then are you able to communicate that and attract and make learners understand who an engineer is and all that? That's what's lacking. And that's why I normally say it is better to have communication skills generally, communication skills in whatever discipline. If you're an engineer, you'll know communication skills, you'll know how to engage these learners. Because if we say we are bringing professionals back to school, then it is at a very high risk if they have no communication skills. So we need professionals to go for refresher courses on communication. That's my statement, not so no worries. So, but we need everyone to know how to communicate, not only for ourselves, even for our children, because we are rubbing shoulders day and every time. The other part is global network. Why are we working in isolation? And I'm so happy that the European Science Festival is not working in isolation to Europe, within Europe, but they are looking at how can we engage other, scientists, other, stakeholders from as far as Kenya. I'm really, really happy for that because you are not working in isolation. So for us to, to address global issues, and remember, local issues are becoming global issues. With the change, with the trend, with the climate change, with all this, whether you believe in it or not, some of the local problems are becoming global. Then think global, act local. What we need is let's work together, and that's what we do. For Fun and Education Global Network, we are bringing schools together. We are bringing teachers together. We are bringing professionals to work with these schools. And just to understand, it might be about malaria. It might be about,